Accountability was raining down hard on America's sanctuary cities. The Democrat mayors from Boston, Chicago, Denver, and NYC in the hot seat on Capitol Hill and getting grilled by Republicans on why they're letting migrant criminals run wild.
Mayor Johnson, is Denver a sanctuary city?
Folks use that term differently. I can tell you what Denver does. We do not.
Okay, I take that as a yes. Is Chicago a sanctuary city?
A 40-year policy of being a welcoming city.
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him. Others may want to bring hell. We are here to bring peace to cities everywhere.
In the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering city services.
You don't ask about how much money the city of Boston has spent on illegal immigration? Are you out of your mind? We don't distinguish between
immigration status.
Do you manage your budget or not, Mayor?
That is how we keep our
Mayor
city
Wu,
safe.
do you?
But of course, the Dems were losing their marbles over the hearing.
It's total bull. Absolute bull. They are not making America safer again, and what they are doing is terrorizing immigrant families.
U.S.-born Americans
that
commit more rape
Especially,
and murder than immigrants.
Listen, this trend of you
Data
all
from
trying to get
Texas
thrown out of
shows
committee
that
so you can get on
US-born
MSNBC is going to
commit
end.
more
We're not
rape.
going to put up with it.
Dana, this feels like it's so 2020. I don't know. You know, like I'm looking at this, and maybe it's because we had the speech last night, so maybe we're not as engaged in this. But you're watching, you go, did anything come out of this? I can't say. I didn't watch a lick of it.
Okay, so I think a couple things did. First of all, Brandon Johnson has an approval rating that is like bubonic plague level at 6.6%. He went out of his way basically to tell Chicago, I don't care what you think. I know you're saying that you want me to fix the neighborhoods. I'm sticking to my guns here. The Boston mayor spent $650,000 to prep for this hearing. Okay, and that's like, remember the Ivy League presidents that gave the anti-Semitism hearings and then they all lost their jobs? Unfortunately, the citizens of Boston can't fire her until there's a next election because what a waste of money. Plus, just last week, she went on TV and she expressed condolences for a guy who tried to go on a killing spree with a knife because he got shot in the process. And she was sorry for him.
Yeah, well, because he used a knife and not a gun.
That's true.
It's true.
90% of Americans agree with this. We should remove murderers and rapists, illegal immigrants. I don't think I've ever seen 90% support for anything, except for maybe like right after 9/11.
Yeah.
Like those were that kind of levels. And to think of all of this yesterday, in the month of January, or February, there were 8,900 crossings across the entire border, across the entire month. A year before that, it was 189,000. And the Biden-Harris administration, Karine Jean-Pierre, all of them said, there's nothing we can do because Donald Trump told Congress not to pass the legislation.
Yeah.
And that is the BS word, which I also want to go on the record and say, I don't understand all the Democrats cursing. I find it very unpersuasive and undignified.
It is undignified.
A live look now at Capitol Hill. The mayors of 4 sanctuary cities, Boston, Denver, Chicago, and New York, are all testifying at a House Oversight hearing. And we've been covering this. We did last hour on the Faulkner Focus. It's gotten spicy at times. Republicans, I should say, are accusing these mayors of turning a blind eye to the law, wasting millions of illegal aliens, or millions of dollars on those illegal aliens instead of American citizens. It didn't take long for things to get like this.
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath, and let's ask him some questions.
Well, we can really get into it about how safe Boston has been. I know you've been doing a lot of reporting on the border. What do you say, Griff?
Well, you know, what's crazy, and I'm glad to see this happen, if you go back in 2015, when Kate Steinle was killed on a pier by an illegal alien named Jose Garcia Zarate, he had been deported 5 previous times with multiple convictions in the San Francisco sanctuary city, released him. And I'll give President Trump this credit. He was a candidate in 2015, 2016, and he said about this case, he said, this is an absolute disgrace. Nobody has the guts to talk about it. It won't happen if I become president. He wasn't able to reign in sanctuary cities in his first term. It ran rampant under the Biden administration. And now you're seeing President Trump with a mandate pushing on Congress to try and bring this under control. How many people have died or been raped or had horrendous crimes carried against them since we didn't learn that lesson. And it's unbelievable. It's often, you know, in the border world, people say sanctuary cities are simply sanctuary cities for criminals. And that's what it's become. And you and I were just talking about.
Why do they need a sanctuary? Because they can do anything they want to do all over the country.
It doesn't make sense. If I were a member of Congress at this hearing, I would ask all four of those people, how did we get here? How did we not learn the lesson of Kate Steinle?
Great question.
And why in the world can releasing criminal migrants back into the public and not cooperating with ICE, as we just saw and talked about in Denver, how does that possibly serve any goal other than making the community that you represent more dangerous?
All right, let's get to Denver. In fact, Congressman Jim Jordan and Denver Mayor Mike Johnston had a pretty spicy exchange about an illegal Venezuelan gang member freed by Denver authorities in the parking lot of the jail. Just watch this.
But you won't do it that way.
I've seen the video. I've reached out to ICE. I've offered to sit down and coordinate on strategies. If we need to make adjustments to what we do on releases, we'll do that. This is the first time in the 1,226 releases
You know,
I've
I read your
so we'll
written
take
testimony
action.
last night. I read your written testimony last night. 4.5 pages. And you used the words safe, safer, or safety 13 times. Talking about my job is to protect the safety of the people in Denver. We prioritizing making sure everyone in our community is safe. That's a lie.
Look, they let that TDA member out, not holding him in a detention center until I showed up, nothing like that. They let him out in the parking lot, and he assaulted a cop in that parking lot. That's what they were going back and forth with. Look, Lisa, I don't think they see their own citizens as people. What is this?
Well, I mean, look, sanctuary cities protect undocumented immigrants over their own citizens. I mean, that's what sanctuary city is. And this is a much-deserved public flogging of these mayors of sanctuary cities. And some of them have some political vulnerabilities as well. Michelle Wu is facing a Democrat primary challenge from Josh Kraft, Robert Kraft's son, who could potentially be very well funded. Eric Adams here is facing a primary challenge as well in his mayoral race. Andrew Cuomo is actually up in polling right now. And also, I believe he understands that there's a political vulnerability here because he wrote an op-ed in the New York Post trying to defend the sanctuary city policies. But, you know, all this is a matter of will. Just as easily as they've made their cities sanctuary cities, they could also undo it. We saw that with Gavin Newsom in California when he was able to magically clean up San Francisco when China's President Xi came in. Right. So it's just a matter of will. And clearly they would rather put these illegal aliens over their own citizens, including the safety of their citizens.
Well, look, you know, being a sanctuary city, there was an op-ed today by Mayor Adams, who's one of the mayors there from New York City. Being a sanctuary city also does not give New York City the authority to violate federal immigration laws. To the contrary, New York City will always comply with city, state, and federal laws as it does now. It's not his decision whether or not this stays a sanctuary city. That's city leaders here, all of them together, and he's outnumbered by just how liberal they are, a former Republican, Eric Adams.
And that underscores the disconnect between these liberal mayors and their constituents that are crying for safety, protection, and to feel heard. Focus on Boston for a second, because I want to underscore the point that the ICE detainer requests serve as well as a backstop for this continued to be infected criminal justice system that has all of the holdovers from the Soros-funded DAs and all of those woke and liberal policies that constituents are trying so desperately to help eradicate. So let's focus on Boston. Just December 4th, a convicted illegal immigrant murderer who beat his pregnant girlfriend to death in front of her 5-year-old son was released. Of course he was released. Here's the exact reason why. It's because his adjustment was positive in jail, and he expressed remorse for his actions and reminded everyone that he called the police himself after he beat his girlfriend to death. Now, my point is, as the DA obviously vociferously rejected and went against the release of this individual, they specifically articulated that he was a danger, a flight danger, because as an illegal immigrant, he liked to continuously come across the border with different aliases. So what happens? Boston releases him and ICE picks him up. That is the efficacy of President Trump's executive orders being carried out by Tom Homan and Director Noem.
Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned Boston with Michelle Wu, the mayor, saying, you know, it's this bastion of safety for people. You gave an example, a heartbreaking example. Kaylee.
Yeah, I love that you just said bastion of safety and woo, because the site you played, soundbite from Jim Jordan, when he said, oh, you keep saying safety, he's saying this to the Denver mayor. This is a trend. I mean, I don't know if they all like compared notes and said, let's just go in and like give lip service to safety. But Mayor Brandon Johnson said, and this was in his opener, as mayor of Chicago, nothing is more important to me than safety and well-being. Really? Because Nate Foy just spoke about an illegal immigrant who was suspected of abusing children or doing something nefarious with children, who now is accused of murder. So that happened in your jurisdiction. You care about safety? Right.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how they get past it. Art Del Cueto, Vice President of the Border Patrol Council, said last hour, it is page 2 of the ICE detainer. Keep them held until we get there and let us know with 48 hours at least to get there. In Denver, they're giving like an hour's notice and letting them go in the parking lot.
All right, we've got Fox Team coverage for you. Brooke Taylor is live at the border ahead of the visit from Vice President Vance. But let's start with Nate Foy. He's live in New York City with a look at some of the dangerous criminals these sanctuary policies have protected. Nate, what's the latest from the hearing?
Hey, Sandra, well, you just saw there's some contentious moments, which I guess is expected. Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina just said that all of these sanctuary city mayors have blood on their hands. And that happened after a heated exchange between Congressman Jim Jordan and Denver's Mayor Mike Johnston after an illegal migrant was accused of assaulting ICE agents last week. Take a look. So this is that illegal migrant who was also a suspected Tren de Aragua gang member. A Denver County Jail released him to the streets last Friday, forcing ICE agents to arrest him in public, where he later is accused of assaulting officers. Now, those street arrests are necessary because sanctuary laws limit cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. In Boston, ICE agents arrested this illegal migrant from Guatemala last month. He was set free after being charged with the aggravated rape of a child. Border Czar Tom Homan criticized Boston's police commissioner, drawing this response from Mayor Michelle Wu today.
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath, and let's ask him some questions.
Sandra, John, right in Mayor Wu's backyard, ICE agents arrested this illegal Haitian migrant who was roaming the streets despite 17 criminal convictions.
I'm not going back to Haiti. You feel me? Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
And just this week, this illegal migrant and suspected TDA gang member is on the loose in Chicago, despite being a suspect in a shooting death last September and a weapons arrest back in October. Also, John, you may remember here in New York back in December, an illegal migrant from Guatemala was arrested and charged with lighting a woman on fire and killing her in the New York City subway, and the immigration detainer in that case was not honored. We'll send it back to you.
I remember all of those incidents vividly. All right, Nate Foy for us in New York. Nate, thank you.
It's a simple question. You can release him in the parking lot, give ICE 1 hour notice, and they got to send 6 officers to arrest this guy. Or you can say, hey, what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold him. You come in and bring 2 officers in, and you turn him over there. Why not do it that way?
We have a city
ordinance. You know why you don't do it that way?
We have a city ordinance that governs.
Because you're a sanctuary city. This is the whole point.
No, sir, I disagree with you.
Tense exchange there on Capitol Hill with the Denver Mayor Mike Johnston over a Tren de Aragua gang member who ICE says assaulted officers after being released from a Denver jail. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan was the man asking those questions, and he joins us now. What did you make of the answers you were getting, sir? Welcome.
Well, here's the simple fact. Just do the common sense thing. You got a gang member who's been arrested, charged with stealing a car, assaulting someone. He was in your custody for 345 days. You have a detainer with an administrative warrant sent to you by ICE saying simply, hey, when you're going to release this guy, give us a heads up, give us enough notice where we can come there and apprehend him while he's still in jail. And they said, no. We're going to give you an hour notice. This is what they did. They release him to the streets. It's stamped on the document by their jail, by their sheriff's office, released to the streets, and then ICE has to arrest him in the parking lot or on the streets, and an officer gets hurt in the process or gets assaulted in the process. Makes no sense. Oh, by the way, the form where they stamp or release him to the streets, the Denver law enforcement, on that form, it also says this guy was violent towards staff. So they knew this guy was, they had the arrest record, but they also had seen it firsthand. He was violent to the staff at the jail. For goodness sake, just let ICE come in and arrest him. But no, they're so committed to this ridiculous left-wing sanctuary city policy, they release him out in the street, and we had what happened with the officer getting assaulted.
And they seem to have trouble during the hearing justifying the reasons why they do what they do. And they seem to do it quite often. Listen to this exchange between Nancy Mace and the four mayors.
Do you believe it's acceptable for illegals who commit heinous crimes be released back into the public instead of being detained and deported? Mayor Adams, yes or no?
Anyone break a crime?
Yes or no? This is not hard. Yes or no?
Anyone that break a crime should be detained.
Okay, Mayor. Yes or no?
They should be deported.
Okay, Mayor.
Any individual that
Yes or no?
causes harm
Yes or no?
and breaks
Okay,
the law
Mayor Wu?
should be held accountable.
This is why you have 6% approval rating, because you suck at answering questions.
I mean, she has a way of getting under their skin, but they do have a difficult time explaining why they're doing what they're doing and how they could potentially be doing it differently.
Yeah, I mean, just do the common sense thing. You got a bad guy. ISIS says we know he's here illegally. They'd apprehended him 2 years ago. Biden administration released him into the country. He's a bad guy, done bad things. You held him in custody for almost a year. And then when you're going to release him, just give notice and plenty of time so ICE can come there and actually apprehend and arrest him inside the jail. No one gets hurt. In fact, think about the immigrant. Think about the migrant. You're jeopardizing his safety. You're jeopardizing the safety of your community, the safety of the agents who come to arrest him, the ICE agents, and the safety of the migrant. Why not do it? But here's the problem with the Democrat Party today. Sarah Huckabee Sanders said it best. She said the divide in America today is normal versus crazy. The left has embraced every stupid, crazy policy there is. We don't need a border. Men can compete against women in sports. We're not going to work with ICE. We're going to go put them out on the street. You got to go arrest them there. All these policies are just crazy. Just do common, like President Trump said. We're now the party of common sense. Let's get some common sense with these mayors so that we can keep people safer.
This was an emotional moment in testimony earlier with Rep. Clay Higgins, the rep from Louisiana. Listen.
The policies of these mayors and our previous president have consequences, real life consequences. I have a family here today, Mr. Chairman, who lost their beautiful loved one. This young man was killed by an illegal immigrant in Texas that never should have been in our country. You mayors have responsibility, not just to your communities and the citizens you just want to serve, but by extension to the entire republic.
But still, they just seem to be pressing on with their ideologies and policies and turning a blind eye to stories like that.
Yeah, the American people see through it all. The American people understand. Look, I've had the opportunity to talk to Laken Riley's family. We all know what happened there. We had Ms. Nungary come testify in front of our committee in the last Congress. This stuff is real. It has real life consequences for families who are in our great country. And it's just wrong to have this lax attitude that we see from these mayors with this sanctuary city policy. And the president's right when he talks about federal grant dollars, federal funding, going to these. If you're going to continue to do this kind of thing, release someone to the streets who you know is bad, who actually was violent against your staff, and you have that arrest record, and you kept him in jail for almost a year, and they're just going to release him on the streets. You probably shouldn't be getting any federal tax money, for goodness sake. That's what the president said. And I think, again, that's just good common sense.
All right. Well, we'll see the way it goes in the future, but it doesn't look like anything's going to change. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, John, thank you. For more, let's bring in Patricia P. Ray Easley, a Chicago resident who traveled to D.C. to attend this hearing. Thank you so much. We've heard from you before. We've had you on the program. Please do share with us your thoughts about what you have heard so far.
I want to start by saying thank you so much to the United States Congress on behalf of the taxpayers and the citizens of Chicago. We have been in a situation where our tax dollars, resources, and time have been allocated to illegal aliens because our city has been magnetized for illegal immigration through the sanctuary policies.
So you've got Brandon Johnson. He's there defending his city sanctuary policies. Obviously, J.B. Pritzker, the governor, is defending the state's sanctuary policies. But at the same time, ICE, at least, P. Ray, in the initial phases here, is going after criminal illegal aliens. So you've got the mayor of Chicago, your town, defending the status of illegal criminal migrants in the city. Does that make any sense to you?
No, sir, it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, we care about the health, safety, and security of our families. Our goal is to protect our families, not people who chose to skirt our U.S. immigration laws and sneak into our country. It's not fair that they're held to a higher standard or a lesser standard than us. It's like they're special. And we want to know what makes these people so special that they can't be prosecuted, they get our tax dollars, they get free housing, they get free health care. It's like we are at a disadvantage because we're citizens.
All right, if we could real quick, we're going to dip back into that hearing. Iona Presley is speaking right now. Let's listen in for a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring up a bill that's going to be before the floor, H.R. 32, a bill that would basically take away federal grants if the administration thinks you are a, quote, sanctuary city, which...
All right, so we tried to catch it there.
We missed her there. Oh, well.
Whether your cities are even sanctuary
Go ahead,
cities.
Sarah.
All right, so let's get back to P. Ray. P. Ray, bottom line, America's watching what is happening in that hearing room, and they are hearing directly from these mayors who seem to be in defense of policies that have, quite frankly, destroyed many of these great American cities. How do you believe that they can continue to defend this, especially based on the turnout of the last election? People want to see their cities and the sidewalks safe again. They want to be able to live freely and not worry about policies that are leading to the destruction of their city.
Well, it's really important that we realize that the legislation that is allowing this was in place before this last election. We heard the mayors all this morning say that these are city laws that they are following. So it's really important that the federal government comes to give us relief against these very harmful policies that are affecting us on the city level or on the municipal level. And again, we thank them for coming, thank them for making them answer before Congress, and hopefully we'll be able to get some type of reprieve through the federal government.
So we have seen a tremendous amount of money in these cities and these states going, this is taxpayer money,
yes,
too.
My money.
It's not just money that they get out of the air going to service these migrants, such as this. Denver, $79 million as of November 2024. Chicago, $638.7 million. That's August of 2022 through January 2025. Massachusetts, more than $1 billion to date. And look at this. New York City projected this fiscal year to hit $3.3 billion. You add all of that together, P. Ray, and that turns into real money. And American taxpayers are forking it over. And when we heard from Joe Biden, there's nothing more I can do about illegal immigration until Congress acts. And then we see in the first month and a half of the Trump administration, cross-border illegal traffic is down 95%. Do taxpayers rightly ask, why have we been spending all this money?
Yes, we don't go to work to pay for illegal immigrants. We don't fight the snow and the rain and the heat to go out into this world to pay taxes in order to pay for the entire third world. It's not fair to us, especially me as an American Negro woman. I'm not an immigrant at all. So this is none of my business. As a 100% eighth generation free American, I find this very insulting because the laws and our sovereignty are not being respected right now. And they want to try to make this a racialized issue. They want to try to make this xenophobic, but by doing that, it ignores people like myself who are not a part of the white majority, but are 100% Americans. We can't stand for this. And right now, we're one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, P. Ray, always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, P. Ray. Makes a compelling argument there. We are awaiting a White House.
The policies of these mayors and our previous president have consequences. This young man was killed by an illegal immigrant in Texas that never should have been in our country.
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath, and let's ask him some questions.
You can release him in the parking lot give ICE 1 hour notice, and they got to send 6 officers to arrest this guy. Or you can say, hey, what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold him. You come in and bring 2 officers in, and you turn him over there. Why not do it that way?
We have a city
You
ordinance.
know why you don't do it that way?
We have a city ordinance that
Because you're a sanctuary city. This is the whole point.
You ready?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Sanctuary policies on blast as mayors of major American cities testify before Congress. This blockbuster hearing comes as the Trump administration continues its crackdown on illegal immigration and crime. Mark Meredith live for us now on Capitol Hill. And Mark, how heated did the hearing get today?
John, good afternoon to you. Well, the hearing is ongoing and it has gotten heated at times, but so much of the debate usually on this kind of immigration policies is with the Congress and the White House. Today, lawmakers are hearing from 4 people on the front lines, the mayors of 4 major American cities, who say they believe not every illegal immigrant should be deported from this country and that they think at times that they should not be cooperating with federal law enforcement officers. As of today, we have the leaders of 4 major cities, Denver, Chicago, Boston, and New York, all testifying before the House Oversight Committee. These lawmakers telling them why they think the sanctuary cities should protect some illegal immigrants from potential deportation. Today, these mayors arguing by not cooperating with some efforts, they are actually making their cities safer.
Put simply, any actions that amplify fears of deportations make Chicago more dangerous. Those fears cause witnesses and victims to avoid cooperating with police. The cooperation of all people, regardless of their immigration status, is essential to achieving the city's goals of reducing crime and pursuing justice for victims.
President Trump and Republican lawmakers, as well as the administration's new immigration enforcement leaders, argue the opposite, that sanctuary policies are simply making America's cities unsafe and prevent law enforcement officers from simply doing their jobs.
The mayors here today each lead so-called sanctuary cities. And let's be clear, these policies only create sanctuary for criminals. Sanctuary policies violate federal immigration law by protecting criminal aliens at the expense of the American people.
The tone with these mayors has been pretty polite from these lawmakers. We'll see as the afternoon goes on. There's 60 lawmakers getting to ask questions today. And, John, I just thought this was kind of funny. Right across from this hearing, they're giving out ashes for Ash Wednesday. So we've seen a number of lawmakers pop by just wondering what's happening in this room. An indication here this debate's going to continue on Capitol Hill even after these mayors wrap up. John.
Well, if you got 60 people who are talking, that is going to take a while. Mark Meredith for us. Mark, thank you.